has indeed come to an end. We are hearing from the police helicopter that was on the scene that OJ Simpson is in custody. Our Sky 11 helicopter is flying overhead as well, and it says that a man in the vehicle, believed to be Simpson, has turned himself in, has left his vehicle and was taken to the police car behind his own vehicle, which is at the home, his Brentwood home. So while it may be very difficult to see right now, we are
looking at live pictures of the scene outside the home of OJ Simpson in Brentwood, California, and he has given up tonight. This standoff, which has been going on all day long, has ended peacefully. He still faces 2 counts of murder with complications. He faces a trial that could lead to the death penalty if he is found guilty. He continues to proclaim his innocence. The police are now breaking down their command post outside his home.
changing things if police are moving around, if they are moving about freely, because before they were staying back with the negotiator trying to negotiate a surrender from OJ Simpson, believed to be in that vehicle at his Brentwood home. So Al, if you are seeing that kind of movement, that would be a further indication that Simpson is in custody.
A long 50-mile police chase today. He was a fugitive for most of the day from justice, wanted on 2 counts of murder, but tonight he now has surrendered at his home. His lifelong friend Al Cowlings was his driver during the day and apparently his chief negotiator at the end of the day. So gratefully, there has been no more violence in this bizarre and dramatic situation involving one of America's best-known personalities, OJ Simpson, who still faces a mountain of trouble. His ex-wife, Nicole, is dead, killed by a knife, we're told by the district attorney. Also, Ron Goldman, who was a 25-year-old friend of hers.
No, the driver got out of the car and was taken into the house, and apparently all O.J. Simpson wanted to do was to go inside of the house and either, one, speak with his mother directly, who we believe is there, or at least make a phone call to her and talk to her on the telephone. They said that would be fine with them, but he could not come out of the car with the revolver that he had in his hand. It was described by the police officers as a blue steel revolver that had about a 6-inch barrel on it. He kept that gun in his hand for quite some time, and in fact started to lean out of the door with it in his hand, and then leaned back inside the car. Then he moved up to the front seat, sat there for a few minutes, and then for some reason I guess he had some photographs, some picture frames, as we were listening to the police scanners saying he's got a picture frame in his left hand, now he's got a picture frame in his right hand, now he is starting to exit the car. There was a moment of silence, and then all of a sudden the officer said, "We have a code 4, which means they have their man in custody." This all happened just moments ago. It's been a very dramatic and topsy-turvy day, and it's certainly been an emotional one.
Unbelievable, Greg. Did you hear Simpson speak at all?
No, I did not. I was not scanning, this scanner was not scanning anything that he was saying. It was only scanning what the police officers were saying. I can tell you that the police officers had put themselves in a position around the mansion that they were afraid that Simpson might try to jump out and run in any direction, and they had themselves tactically set up to be able to deal with any kind of situation. In fact, we're told that if Simpson jumps out of the car and starts running, like in one officer's direction, for instance, they were told to take him out, in essence.
Cowlings apparently was the mediator, right?
He was initially, and at some point in time they took him inside the home. Now it's going to be interesting to see what explanation he will have for all of this. Obviously, it seems that Simpson, I can't say obviously, but it seems that Simpson did have a revolver of some sort, and whether he was forced to get into the car and be the driver is unclear at this time, but it was clear that Simpson was sitting in the rear of the seat for most of the duration of this chase and now the end of this situation.
Craig, where is O.J. Simpson now?
That I cannot tell you. I'm about a block away, and I have no monitors, but I can only assume he's inside the home. They did agree to allow him to speak with his mother, but there's one question that has been resolved here, and that is certainly that he is in police custody and unharmed, apparently.
What a day.
What a day.
Greg, thank you for terrific reporting all day long.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of our people.
Then this evening, we had a news conference by his lawyer Robert Shapiro describing the scene at the home today as he tried to prepare him to surrender. Shapiro, doctors and psychologists went upstairs. O.J. and Al Cowlings decided to make a run. At that point, O.J. left behind letters. One of his friends read portions of a letter that O.J. had addressed to the public, and it sounded very much like a suicide note. Here is a part of that letter now.
I think of my life and
2.5 hours as we've been following the latest developments in the police manhunt for O.J. Simpson. As you mentioned, the police chase took place over 60 miles of California interstates. Apparently, the police pursuit was triggered by a cellular telephone call that had been made inside Al Cowlings' '93 white Ford Bronco, which became a very identifiable moving landmark, if you like, along those interstates, along most of that chase. As it passed under each successive overpass, more and more people gathered by the roadside with signs supportive of O.J. Simpson, asking him to turn himself in. On local radio stations in Los Angeles, former associates, coaches, and associate players pleading for O.J. Simpson to turn himself in to authorities. That had been arranged earlier in the morning, about 8:30 this morning, Pacific time. His lawyer, Robert Shapiro, received a telephone call from authorities saying that they were coming. They were coming to make an arrest. We're going now live to CNN's Robert Vito. Bob, what can you tell us?
Well, what we can tell you right now is that O.J. Simpson's sister, surrounded by probably a couple of dozen police officers, was just escorted from the house, which is about a block from me, down the street, and you can probably hear the people in the background. They were cheering her as she went through. It's still a circus atmosphere out here, which is, I think, to be expected, but at the same time sad, considering the circumstances. There are still scores of police vehicles. They finally have turned their bubblegum lights off. Things, I think, will be returning to normal here shortly, but people are just standing around. I guess maybe as I look around, maybe 300, 400, 500 people, some waving signs, "We support you, O.J., we love you, O.J., we're with you, O.J." And police, as they try to move the crowd back, jeer the police officers when television camera lights go on, and people jump up and down in front of the cameras. But anyway, the bottom line is, as we understand it, O.J. Simpson has been taken into custody. We don't know if his attorney, Robert Shapiro, was involved in the negotiations, but it was very sensitive. And for a long time, there were great concerns as to how it might end. But at this hour, it's ended very peacefully.
where they were.
Bronco. With me now is NBC's legal consultant, Jack Ford. Jack, I've been doing journalism for a little more than 30 years now, and I've been a pretty good student, I think, of this kind of situation. There's been nothing like it that I can remember in the annals of American criminal history. Can you remember anything like this that you read about in your legal education?
Tom, your 30 years in the journalism business, my 18 years as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I can't remember anything that mirrors this at all. In addition to being a frightening twist in the case, it's created some major legal complications for O.J. Simpson. If he ever had any hope of being released on bail pending a trial in this case, that hope has vanished into the California night. In addition to that, now if this case does go to trial and he's taking the position that he's not guilty, prosecutor may well be able to stand up and describe this chase to the jury, might even be able to play the video of the tape to the jury, and then ultimately argue to the jury and ask the judge to instruct them that they can consider this entire flight episode as evidence of his guilt, as evidence that in his own mind he knew he was guilty, and as a result he decided he had to run away. So this has fortunately not ended up in a tragedy, an additional tragedy, but it has become something of a legal tragedy for O.J. Simpson.
Conversely, could his lawyers, whoever they turn out to be, make the claim that this behavior was so bizarre that this was a man who has not been in complete charge of his faculties?
Tom, if you had to guess what sort of defenses are going to be woven through this case, I would hazard the guess that you're going to see one of these emotional types of defenses. Clearly, when he was being treated by a psychiatrist here, we heard his lawyer talk about the fact that he was actually being medicated. It does set the stage for a defense attorney to walk in and say, look, this is not what it looked like. This is not somebody who was fleeing because he knew he had committed a double homicide and he was trying to get away. It's a man who had become so overwhelmed by his own distress and his personal personal depression that he couldn't deal with it anymore. So please, you would argue to the jury, don't look at this as some indication that O.J. Simpson's a criminal. Look at it as if he's a man that was just inundated with pressures that no one could ever deal with. And they have to hope that the jury might agree with that.
Jack, this is the kind of situation in which it's virtually impossible to set a jury anywhere in America that has not been witness to some of the events that we're seeing here today, is not familiar with what has been going. How in the world do you assemble a fair panel?
That's going to be the major hurdle, just the first major hurdle in the case, Tom. As you know, the standard is not, do you know anything about this case in order to serve as a juror, but rather it's, have you made up your mind? Have you reached any conclusions on the case? But certainly, the more exposure people have had to this, the more opinions they're going to reach. They may find themselves in a situation where they do a couple of things. One, the defense might ask to stretch the trial out a little bit, hold off on it, put it on the back burner. The other thing they might ask to do is to go to someplace else where people might not have been paying as much attention to it, but it's going to be a difficult chore for them.
Thank you very much, Jack Ford. We'll be hearing from you again as we continue our coverage of these exceptional circumstances. We want to tell you as well that we'll be back in less than an hour at 1 in the morning East Coast time. That would be at 11 on the Pacific Coast, of course, for that news conference by the Los Angeles Police.
Thing is that the streets here, Rockingham, Ashford, and the other surrounding streets are quite literally blocked with police vehicles, and that's one of the reasons why at this point right now they're not allowing us down or any of members of residents and so forth at this point right now. So right now we noticed that all of the police vehicles that have been here, some half dozen to a dozen or more, are trying now to join in with that motorcade. Of course, as O.J. Simpson leaves the area, the detectives and other officers assigned to this area, at least half of them, are also trying to exit right now.
Al, we have a report from AP that says that O.J. Simpson was chased down and captured in his driveway. We obviously, because of the darkness from Sky 11, despite the camera in Sky 11, could not see that. Have you heard anything about him being chased down the driveway?
We don't have any confirmed reports that he was actually chased down, but what I can tell you is that just moments right before his apparent capture or apprehension, we did notice about a half dozen police officers that had rushed into that area where the car was. Whether or not they actually had to chase him down, we don't know. Obviously, we'll find out there at Parker Center for the news conference, but we did see officers running just prior to his capture.
Go, go, go! All right, that's Al Nipo near the O.J. Simpson estate in Brentwood, reporting that the crowd that we saw with Greg Weissman is apparently also where Al Nipo is, or a different part of that same crowd.
If there is some movement, we'll go back to Al, perhaps Greg as well. Right now, Simpson is in custody, perhaps in a police car. He would be transported to one of the lockups, I guess. Right now...
Back to Parker Center. They left for a time being. And O.J. Simpson will be brought here to Parker Center, and he will be held here until at least Monday morning, if not Tuesday morning. As Chris Harris said, they have until Tuesday morning or Tuesday to file their case on O.J. Simpson. So he will be brought here to Parker Center. He will be booked here. The booking process includes his mugshot being taken, fingerprints being taken, and he will be held in a felony section jail here at Parker Center.
Rod, do they have a suicide watch or suicidal tendency cells down there at Parker Center? I know they do at the men's main jail downtown, but we obviously have indications that O.J. Simpson is suicidal. Is there protection for him at Parker Center?
Yes, there is, Chris. They do have something called a suicide watch, and that means that O.J. Simpson would be kept under constant observation, or at the very least every 15 minutes. Given the high-profile nature of this case, I very well imagine that he would be kept under constant contact. Now, it used to be, I don't know if that's changed because of budget cuts, but it used to be that Parker Center Jail had a full-time physician on duty. And they always have the option, they have two options besides Parker Center Jail. Should medical authorities deem it necessary, they could take him directly to county jail, where they do have a jail ward hospital. Or they could also take
Simpson's home.
Chris, that car, that brown car right there is where O.J. is in.
Okay.
That brown, yeah, O.J. was in the back seat. I saw him just drive through. So now.
Okay, we seem to have lost the audio from Greg Weissman, but fortunately we didn't lose it until after Greg was able to tell us that O.J. Simpson was in that. Are you there, Greg?
South in Rockingham, just past Highview. And again, O.J. was in that car, so the best we can tell right now, apparently they're on their way down to Parker Center.
And Phil Schumann, are you on the ground? Joe Rico, anybody near this? Paul, this is Phil. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, you're looking at the scene, again, just below the mansion on Rockingham. Bob Shapiro walking away on foot with the LAPD officers. We can safely assume that he played a key role in negotiating the final details, if you will, of the surrender as he arrived perhaps 10 minutes before the development reported that O.J. decided to give himself up.
Phil, it looks like there's some kind of news conference going on there. Can you get in there? Can somebody get in there and give us some details on this?
Believe me, I wish I could, but it's literally impossible to move from this location. We're just about half a block away, and the LAPD has controlled access to the scene very, very tightly, and we're not allowed to move from where we are right now.
Right.
We do have a crew there that would be recording this, so it should be just a matter of minutes before we learn what Mr. Shapiro is saying.
Okay, so we do have a crew recording. I see a number of cameras there, but we can't take the camera we're seeing now and move up there, huh?
That's correct.
All right, so we'll just have to wait and see after Mr. Shapiro is through with his comments.
Okay.
Conan Nolan, who played a key part in our coverage during the low-speed pursuit, has more for us. Conan?
Paul, we are live where this entire unfortunate incident began, which is on Bundy, just across the street from the condominium, I should say, the townhouse of Nicole Brown Simpson, and where she was murdered along with Ronald Goldman. Ironically, just a few moments ago, we believe that family members of O.J. Simpson just passed by with a police escort in a white limousine. It appears they are being brought to the scene right now, possibly to talk to O.J. Simpson, and if he's going to be taken downtown to Parker Center, perhaps say goodbye for right now. But it appears that the family's on their way. Ironically, the fastest way they could get up there is right past the home where the murder took place.
We're looking at what we believe, Conan, to be the escort, what you're talking about right there. We've got a picture of it.
Again, this is about 2 miles away, a lot shorter actually, but as the crow flies, but about 2 miles away as you go up Bundy,
right,
then back up to Sunset, take a left. We're actually in West LA.
Who would be in those cars, Conan?
Well, it's my understanding, just the quick glimpse that I got, and from what other people have also seen, we believe, and we're not positive of this, of course, but those are family members of O.J. Simpson that are on their way to the mansion on...
And they were coming out of the townhouse?
No, I'm sorry.
Monday?
They just passed by us.
Okay.
They just passed by the townhouse where the homicide took place, again with a very visible police escort. And my guess is that this is family members, and they're on their way to the mansion now.
He has 3 children grown by a previous marriage, Conan: Arnell, Jason, and Aaron. And I believe we saw...
Jason.
I'm sorry, Aaron. Aaron was a toddler. Arnell and Jason. I think we saw Jason as the Bronco pulled up. I believe that was one of his sons that greeted the Bronco when it pulled up about 2 hours ago.
It would seem to me logical that knowing with LAPD figuring out what the conclusion is going to be, or at least knowing that he wanted to see his mother and wanted to arrive at the mansion, that they would have these family members ready to go. And my guess is that they were waiting for the appropriate time to bring them up there so that they could talk to O.J.
I mentioned Aaron. Aaron unfortunately drowned. The toddler drowned in a swimming pool in 1979. So Arnell and Jason are the 2 remaining children from that marriage.
Personally thank and congratulate Los Angeles Police Chief Willie Williams on one of the most remarkable jobs,
O.J. Simpson's
and his entire staff.
This is an interview that was taped just a few minutes ago.
Los Angeles police officers who were able to resolve one of the most incredible situations in a very, very peaceful manner. I can't express the fear I had that this matter would not end the way it did. I would also, at this point in time, like to ask all members of the public to please reserve any judgment on this case until the evidence is reviewed and presented in a court of law.
That was O.J.'s attorney, Robert Shapiro, expressing his relief at the way this has ended so far. And I think making a good point, and a good point for all of us, to reserve judgment on any and all of this until all of the evidence is in and this case is decided once and for all, one way or another.
What we are looking at right now is a convoy, what appears to be police officers and, as Conan said, perhaps family members on their way to the mansion in Brentwood. Presumably that's where O.J. Simpson still is. Our reporters on the ground have not seen any cars, police cars or private cars leaving the compound. I believe Mr. Shapiro was the only person to have come out. We talk about family members. One of O.J.'s requests, and really key to what happened this evening, was his request to see his mother. And we understand she lives in the Bay Area in San Francisco and has since returned to the Bay Area. Today was watching all of this go down on television and has been hospitalized. We're not sure what her condition is or what the ailment is, but she seemed to be overcome by what she saw on television today concerning her son.
We can only hope that his two younger children by Nicole Brown Simpson, Justin and Sydney, are safe in the arms and confines of their family, I believe in Orange County, and hopefully you're not watching any of this. What a story as we watch this convoy of O.J. Simpson's family. We're not sure what members or if any members are in.
Greg,
we're about a block. Go ahead.
We saw what looked like a carnival-like atmosphere. Could you describe the scene for us right now?
Well, when we pulled up initially about 45 minutes to an hour ago, it was a carnival-like atmosphere. The streets were all blocked off. There was traffic going in all directions. People were walking down the streets, people running, trying to get as close as they could to the Simpson estate. Of course, police blocked off the entire block, in fact, a two-block area to keep people out of the area while a very intense negotiating situation took place. I was fortunate enough to hook up with a radio friend of mine who has a very extensive police scanning radio system and was able to actually hear the officers talking back and forth to each other as they were setting up what they were about to do while Simpson was sitting in the car. Actually, they had the place completely surrounded. Their goal was to get him out of the car without the gun in his hand. That gun was described as a blue steel revolver with a 6-inch barrel on it. Apparently, at some times, he'd start to lean out of the car with the gun. There was negotiations going on, obviously. They were telling him that if he would just put down the gun and get out of the car, let's settle the situation. His goal was to go inside of his home. We're told by several police sources here that his mother is in San Francisco, and what he wanted to do was go inside of his home and use the telephone to call his mother, and if he was able to do that, he would allow himself to be taken into custody. The police said they would agree to that as long as he got out of the car without his gun, but they also said if he got out of the car with his gun, they would shut the front door and that all bets were off. And as we were listening to the police talking back and forth to one another, one person told another that if he comes out of that car with a gun in his hand and he comes in your direction, we'll leave it up to your discretion as to what to do. But there was no doubt about it that they were willing to take O.J. Simpson out if he came out of that car with his gun. This has been a super roller coaster day, full of emotion. It all started off when O.J. certainly didn't show up to be arrested. Certainly the long chase in all of this that was quite dramatic, and then a quite dramatic ending to it when finally O.J. Simpson put the gun down and he got out of the car holding two photographs in each hand showing that he did not have a gun. Now, I don't know what those photographs were, but they could have been of his children. He got out of the car. He was taken into custody. Whether or not he got to talk with his mother is unclear, but they are obviously on their way to the Parker Center now to put him in jail.
Greg, we have some new information about O.J. Simpson's mother. Eunice Simpson has, we have been told by California Pacific Medical Center in San Francisco, been checked in as a patient. Again, O.J. Simpson's mother has checked into California Pacific Medical Center Hospital in San Francisco as a patient. Greg, let me just backtrack if I could for a moment. You mentioned this blue steel revolver that O.J. Simpson was holding. Is there any indication that the gun was loaded?
Well, I can't tell you for a fact that it was loaded, but certainly all the police officers were treating it that way. In fact, from the police scanners that I told you about earlier, they were so convinced that they were afraid that O.J. Simpson would try to get out of the car and run in some direction. And they had people sitting up in trees. They had shotguns trained on him. They had rifles trained on him. They were ready at any time to shoot him if necessary.
The situation seems so unusual, almost bizarre in the sense that the L.A. police were obviously very serious. This looks like the L.A. police. You can't see this, Greg, but L.A. police apparently have arrived at Parker Center. They are pulling up into the parking lot just outside. This is downtown Los Angeles, where O.J. Simpson will be booked on the 2 first-degree counts. Let's listen now to CNN affiliate KTTV's coverage.
Somewhere along the line, a fourth car got added.
Quite a police presence there following the vehicles. It's hard to see what's going on there on the ground. We assume OJ Simpson is among that group on the ground or perhaps still in the vehicle. He will be taken inside to Parker Center.
It's just a short time ago.
Procedure, but hard to believe that an American hero like Simpson will be going through something like this. Hard to imagine his picture, which has been seen by so many people in a police mugshot, but that is indeed what will happen inside.
To quote once again District Attorney Gil Garcetti, who was most eloquent this afternoon, here we have, as he said it, the falling of an American hero. And so we go from an American hero to a murder suspect in just a few days.
Our Jane Wells is down on the ground in Parker Center. She is live. She's going to join us by telephone right now. Jane, what are you seeing from your vantage point?
Actually, I'm on camera. Do you see me?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. But
okay, you're just hearing me. All right, I am out in front of Parker Center. We just saw the motorcade bringing OJ Simpson to Parker Center here, and we just got here, and my photographer Patty Ballas and I, like everybody around Southern California, has been talking about what does this mean, what happens now with this incredible case. The man can't possibly expect to get bail at this point, and then we're wondering, of course we don't have a legal expert with us right now, do we, by any chance?
No, we don't.
Because I'm wondering about the chances of, well, I was under medication, I wasn't thinking straight, or even using even using possibly some sort of insanity defense for the entire thing. I mean, he's obviously acted crazy today, and one might argue he might try and use that for what happened if he is, of course, depending on what sort of defense he puts up.
To bring you up to date, if you're just tuning in, OJ Simpson has been taken into custody. The motorcade carrying OJ Simpson has arrived from his Brentwood, California mansion. They are now at Parker Center. I'm told that we have some video, live video, of OJ Simpson in the police car as they arrived in Parker Center. There he is right now in that police car. Oh, excuse me, this is motorcade from Brentwood. Approximately 20 minutes ago when he was first taken into custody, this after leading police on a 60-mile chase through Orange County and Los Angeles County up to